I don't get, Stephen, is that we have some younger guys like Ream, who's, I think, somewhat capable of playing, a left back or a right back spot.
Last Friday.
Absolutely. Now, why don't we see this guy out there? I mean, rather than a Spector who can't, who's basically totally out of favor with Avram Grant, and Lichaj, who, while at least dressing and sitting on the bench, hasn't gotten much playing time. Why not give somebody who's fit, been playing regularly, like Tim Ream, a shot?
Preaching to the choir, mate. I would say that's a question when you next have Bob Bradley on.
We're more likely to have his brother on.
Yes. which is another thing that amazes me as well. That he's not more visible in the media, but that's his call.
Yeah.
You'd have to ask Bob Bradley about that. I mean, I watched Tim Ream on Friday at the Home Depot Center against the Galaxy, and everything that came across that box, he just smothered.
Yeah.
He was terrific.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that a defender will ever really win MLS player MVP. But it would be nice to think that he could possibly be in that group. The other guy who I would bring in, because we're so, in my opinion, weak at the back, is Omar Gonzalez.
Yes, absolutely.
My only take on this is that just looking at the roster that we have two MLS players, and they're both from FC Dallas. So my guess on the matter is that Bob really wanted to avoid taking any MLS players out of the playoff race, with New York and LA both fighting for the Supporter Shield as well as placement for the playoffs, where they're going to be placed at. My guess is that he just wanted to leave that around Omar and Tim. Will get their shake November and December and even January when we play Chile and South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my take on it. Why? Because you don't even see Landon Donovan in there. I can't think of anybody else really off the MLS rosters, but.
Yeah, no, you make a really good point. Maybe that's what he's done. But I mean, that said, you know what? FC Dallas look pretty unbeatable at the moment. So I mean, I think it would be. See, I think at the national level, if you can get two defenders playing from the same club, I see no way how that hurts.
Sure.
As a Chicago Fire fan, I'm hoping Breck Shea and Heath Pierce leave before this weekend's match, but I don't see that happening.
Oh,
go ahead. 3-0 victory yesterday really was nice.
Well,
I mean, sadly, it probably doesn't really mean very much at this point. I can't see them making it. The West is just too deep.
Right, right. Well, we are quickly, amazingly running out of time. But I want to ask maybe a question that is I've had to deal with as a member of the media. And I haven't been around that long, maybe more behind the scenes as staff writer for many years. But I have to ask you this next question, and it's in relation to the media coverage of soccer players and soccer managers in this country in general, the good old USA. Do you find, and I have personally, that players and coaches to be a little bit maybe on the sensitive and tender side, and in many ways coddled by the soccer press here in the States? It's very hard to write or to say something very critical about a player, or especially if it's anything even the slight bit personal. It gets really touchy, and I wondered if you had some insight on that.
You know what? I think that's a very good point. I mean, I remember going to a Galaxy press conference a few months ago, and I can't remember what the question was that I asked Bruce Arena, but it was one where he became very, very defensive about the league, and the response was essentially, we've had great players in this league for a long time, and I wasn't making. I think that people have spent so much time defending this league that I think that they actually think whatever the question is, they hear it differently, and they think it's an attack or it's a slight or it's demeaning. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of the time it isn't. I personally have become a much, much bigger fan of MLS and some of the personalities in MLS. And I think there are some really, 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 really good people in MLS. Mm-hmm. But where I have real issues, and I can do myself more damage than I've done, is with U.S. soccer, where we spent a lot of time being very honest and yes, critical of U.S. football and the World Cup performance in 2006 that we've essentially been blackballed from the from U.S. soccer media, and it's a great shame because we cover the sport, in my opinion, on a daily basis in this country more so than any other outlet out there, and just by sheer volume of the content we put out, that is true. And we are not always positive, but we are positive a lot. For example, if anybody listens to my show, will know that I have got a real soft spot at the moment for Jason Kreis. I think Jason Kreis is going to be the first great American manager. And beyond the discussion with Bob Bradley and whether he should have come back for the U.S. men's national team job, and people will laugh and say the guy didn't have enough experience, I would have loved to have seen someone like Jason Kreis in the mix. Here is a guy who, in my opinion, is the MLS version of Jose Mourinho. And before you laugh about that, what I mean by that is I get the sense from his players that they will run through walls for him, that he doesn't have any great superstars. He has a lot of journeyman players. He has some really talented, sort of almost no-names, Javier Morales, not no-name, but you know what I mean. And it seems to me that there's an organization and a team and a bunch of players who believe in this guy's system, and this system won them the trophy last season. And I'm really hoping that they win it this year as well, just to elevate Jason Kreis. But to your point about are they coddled and are they a bit sensitive? Yeah, I think you're right.
And go ahead, Brett.
I was going to say, it's funny that you brought up Jason Kreis because, in my opinion, he is my favorite manager in MLS. He's a player's manager, whereas if something happens, he'll tell his players to go away, and then he'll take the brunt of it. He'll go up, he'll yell at the refs, he'll criticize the refs, he'll say what was wrong with the whole situation.
And can I just ask you, who does that remind you of?
Jose Mourinho. Absolutely.
Yeah. A guy who will do what he has to do to protect and defend his players. Now, what he does to them in the locker room is another story. But what he will do as a front to the public and to the league, I think he's going to be brilliant. I really do. And we have him on quite a bit, and we love talking to him. And he's very self-effacing and very shy. He seems quite shy. Remember, this is also a guy who went straight from being a player to a manager. Yeah. That is not easy.
I wanted to follow up on the question before that one more time because, we don't often get people who want to talk about the topic, and because, it's something I've kind of run into myself over the years, going back 10 years, and all's forgiven and all's well now. But, in Europe, players and managers are just shredded in the papers every day. Everyone accepts that as the norm. And maybe, we certainly don't want to go as far as the monstrosity that has become the British or English press, but wouldn't it do American soccer in general some good, or wouldn't it benefit in some way from just a little controversy in the papers?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think the more controversy, the better. I've complained for a long time that the problem with MLS is it never really gave me anything to talk about Monday through Friday. It didn't. There were no stories, and I think that we're seeing more of them now with the likes of, I guess, Rafa Marquez and Thierry Henry and some of the performances. And also, if you look inside the game, how well Dallas are playing, how well Salt Lake are playing. But they don't take to negativity very well here. And the bottom line is, for a sport that isn't going to get a lot of inches anyway, alienating the people who are going to give you the inches you are going to get is probably not the best way of going about it. Now, would it be cool if we could be more honest about things? Yes, of course it would be. But it's just not the landscape.
You're right. So, I mean, I wanted to talk about exactly that. You hit it on the nail, Stephen, and that's the honesty part. And I want to be an honest, broker of the news as well. But as you know, right now, it's a tender situation because the game is still developing in this country, and there are sensitive feelings out there. But